Hello everyone, my name is Dr Parissis. In 2022, statistics on worldwide hair transplant surgery found that 31.9% of patients needed 2 or more surgeries in order to achieve their desired goal. So this begs the question, will you need 2 hair transplant surgeries? And I want to answer this question with an example patient of ours. So take this patient here. He came to us with quite significant hair loss from front to back. I would put him at around about a Norwood 5 to 6 on the Norwood classification scale. He came to us wanting full hair restoration, okay? And usually what we say with patients that want full hair restoration, they require on average about 5,000 to 6,000 grafts to achieve this. There's a lot of talk about FUE as a hair transplant technique versus FUT. And what I would say is that the best way to achieve 5,000 to 6,000 grafts is with FUT. And why is that? I've made quite a lot of videos in the past about FUE versus FUT, but one of the main reasons why FUT is more applicable to this patient here is because it allows more grafts to be harvested over a lifetime. I've actually proved this mathematically with a research paper of mine. It also gives the most consistent growth yield. Now, FUE, you will find patients who've had FUE and have had great growth yield, but what I'm talking about is the consistency of growth yield. So how many patients out of 100 are happy with the growth of their grafts. From our experience of doing both, FUT on average gives the most consistent growth yield patient to patient. And given that the fact that this patient came to us wanting full hair restoration, we wanted to guarantee or at least maximize the chances of him getting the best growth. So this patient kind of was very happy with this and went ahead with FUT as a result. So at this point we had decided on FUT, but we thought about what kind of strategy would be best to use FUT to get those 5,000 to 6,000 grafts that we needed. I'm going to give you 2 options for this, and I want you to think in your head about which approach you think we went for. Approach A is, should we have harvested all the grafts in one sitting? Option B is, should we have harvested half of the grafts in one sitting and the other half of the grafts in 2 sittings? If you answered B, you're 100% correct. We decided to take half of the grafts that he needed for full hair restoration in one sitting and a future session in order to take the other half of grafts that we needed. This is usually the best approach for most of the patients that come to us, and a lot of patients will kind of challenge it and ask some of the following questions about that. So the first question that patients often ask about why we need to do full hair restoration in 2 sittings or with 2 surgeries is they ask, well, why can't we just take a bigger strip? Normally an FUT strip averages about 2 centimeters wide by 30 centimeters long around the circumference of the safe donor area. And it makes a lot of sense to increase the size of the strip because then, of course, you'd be harvesting more grafts with just 1 incision. This is a fair suggestion, but the issue with this is that we can't actually take a larger strip. And that's because we can't take a longer strip, since 30 centimeters is usually how long the circumference of the safe donor area is in most patients. And we can't take a wider strip because then we'd have difficulties with actually closing the wound, and that would affect the scarring. It might make for a little bit uglier or wider scars. So we don't want that. The second question that I've been asked about why we need to do full hair restoration in 2 surgeries is, well, why can't we just do 2 strips in 1 session? Why do we have to split it into 2 different sessions? And that's again another fair question. But the issue with this is that doing 2 large strip procedures in 1 day actually puts quite a lot of trauma on the scalp, and it does actually put quite a significant burden on the scalp for healing. So it could actually have problems with healing. The other thing is that quite a high scalp laxity is needed to take a 2 centimeter wide strip in one part of the safe donor area, followed by another 2 centimeter wide strip just above or below that one. That's 4 centimeters of laxity that's actually needed in 1 sitting. And one thing we see with patients quite a lot of the time is that laxity actually restores itself after 1 FUT procedure. So patients will come in 1 year, have an FUT, and then might have another one in the future, and during that second FUT, what we see is that their laxity has actually resolved. The body has actually adapted, and because of the kind of tension that the scalp has been put under from that initial FUT, laxity has somewhat restored itself to allow for a second strip to be taken a year or two after. The other suggestion that patients might make is, why can't we just do FUE and FUT in the same sitting at the same time? Again, an interesting suggestion, but the issue with this is that we're going to have difficulty achieving our 5,000 to 6,000 graft goal doing this. And the reason for that is that when we do FUE, we can't actually take 3,000 grafts alongside our strip. We can't actually do it without at least venturing outside of the safe donor area. Most people's safe donor areas will not support that number of grafts being plucked out and taken by FUE in one sitting. And so let's say we take 1,000 grafts alongside our strip of, say, 2,500. Well, even then, we've only taken 2,500 plus 1,000, 3,500. We still haven't taken anywhere close to our 5,000, 6,000 graft requirement that is needed for full hair restoration. So this is no good. Even if we take any number of grafts by FUE, alongside doing FUT, the issue with it is that we blow out that region of the safe donor area. We create a kind of a moth-eaten, cherry-picking appearance to the safe donor area, and it means that if the patient isn't happy with their result from the first procedure, or if they lose more hair down the line, then if we do decide on doing another strip in the future, there's less grafts to actually be harvested in that strip because it's been cherry picking from the previous FUE. And so I'm not against any patient wanting FUE. I generally recommend patients do FUE after we've done the maximum amount of FUT that we can do, if that makes sense. So we max out on the amount of FUT we can do, and then if patients want top-ups, or if they do decide, or if they do lose any more hair, then we can do FUE after that. In a nutshell, doing FUT and FUE alongside it creates difficulties achieving that 5,000 to 6,000 graft goal that we're shooting for. And so that answers it. For these reasons, this is why we opt for 2 sittings. The first sitting going for 2,500 grafts by FUT, taking round about a 2 to 30 centimeter surface area strip, and then we simply copy and paste. We do another one in a year or two in order to get another 2,500 to 3,000 grafts, so that in total we have 5,000 to 6,000. It's just simple mathematics, really. And so this is exactly what we did for this patient here. The patient decided to go for the front half first, which is very common. A lot of patients are more concerned with the front half. They kind of want to bang that out first and establish a good, natural, dense hairline before moving into the crown. Here you can see that we did the front half with 3,200 grafts. This is his scar after 12 months. As you can see, most of our scars average about 1 to 2 millimeters wide, which is similar in width to if you were to take a highlighter and kind of draw around the scalp. And this is his before and after. As you can see, it looks absolutely wonderful. And you can see that he's using the other hair that he has in the mid-scalp. Patients often maintain some of the hair within the mid-scalp, even those with significant hair loss. And we use this to blend it in with the frontal region of hair transplants that we have inserted. So a lot of patients, as I said, like this one, opt for the front half first, and they'll kind of blend in and grow it out so that it kind of nicely and naturally camouflages the sort of maybe the lack of density in the crown region. Here you can see that we did a second session with this patient just 12 months later. We really knocked it out, hit it with another 2,000 grafts, which again, if you do the maths, he received 3,200 grafts in the first procedure and then 2,000 in the second one, to create a total of 5,200. And so, quite comfortably and in an organized fashion, and with not much difficulty for the patient, we were able to reach our 5,000 to 6,000 graft goal, which is what's needed to achieve full hair restoration in the average patient. Unfortunately, we don't yet have photos of this patient's crown, so I want to present you with another crown case that we did. This is a kind of a standard crown case result that we would usually get, and the result that we expect for the previous patient that we were just discussing. So here this is a wonderful result This is roughly around the same number of grafts as we did on the previous patient, around about 2,000 grafts. Again by FUT, you can see the grafts wonderfully blend in with the natural hair. We created a lovely whirl effect, what the natural flow of the hairs kind of go by. That's kind of how they grow in the crown region. I think this is a beautiful result. So once again, this is a reminder of our initial patient, and he is a perfect example of a patient who has A, maximized the number of grafts in a safe donor area using FUT, and B, he is destined really to achieve a full hair restoration doing that. Thanks for watching, guys. Once again, my name is Dr Parissis. I work in London, UK. I currently perform consultations in London, UK. If you're interested, feel free to send me an email below. Once again, thanks for watching.